So back to the story about Christ being born and Mary and Joseph. So Mary wraps the baby up in this blanket that she has at the house, and she's like, "There's no way I'm having them burn my child because we're not married. God gave us His child." But see, common law marriage is where that comes from, because God is the one that made that law. That's why it's common law marriage. So Mary wraps her baby up in a blanket before her father goes and does what he's supposed to do to this child. I was like, they're not doing this to my child. And they wrapped it up in the blanket and they stuck it in a basket and they sent it on up to the queen's house, up to the kingdom. And she watched the queen grab the basket and they were like, "Oh my God, it's a baby." And it was such a newborn. She just grabbed it up in her hand. She's like, "Send word out. I want to know who done this to this child immediately, right now." So the maid goes and does what she says, and she's holding this baby, and she's like, "Oh, he's so sweet, I'm going to have him as my own if nobody tells me whose it is." And nobody comes forward about whose baby it is, and she didn't have no pregnancy, so they really couldn't pin it on her either. So she's watching from a distance, and afar, and the queen says, "Okay, fine, nobody wants to stand up and admit their wrongs and take their punishment for this, then nobody better come forward about this being their child. This is now, furthermore, my child for the rest of its life. It's my son. Do not ever speak of it again." And so that's what happened. And then when he became a teenager, they're over there, and they got the mother over there with all, the queen's hanging out with all the other kids that are his age, and he want to play with this kid that's dead, and he can hear. So, Jesus asks in his heart, "Father, what do I do to help this boy hearing? Because I'm not able to play with him." And so he grabs a hold of his head, and his father works his healing. God works his healing powers through Jesus. And next thing you know, he's like, "Hey, I can hear you." He's able to be like the other kids. And she witnessed that, and she went back to the king. She's like, "You never would believe what I witnessed today." And he's like, "What do you mean?" "Well, I witnessed our son healing someone that was not able to hear." "Well, they need to be punished because they must have been lying the whole time. And something needs to be done about that. They cannot be, there's no more powers more powerful than mine." So they end up, wanting to punish the family that had the dead child. And Jesus told him, "It's not them, it was me. I really did heal them because my Father inside my head and my heart, soul, body, and mind was able to heal them." And they didn't understand it, so they thought he was wrong. And then they were like, "Stay tuned and you'll hear the rest of the story."